What up, fam? By the end of this video, you're going to have more tools in your tool belt to go out and talk to motivated sellers. We're in this series called Kingdom Closers, where we're breaking down how to effectively communicate with one another so that we can go do more business and help more people. Last week, we went over the 8-step sales process, which is pretty much an A to Z blueprint on what to go ask motivated sellers so that we can do more business and help more people out. Now, the way the 8-step sales process came about was when I hired my first sales guy. At this point, I was the one always locking up the contracts, and then I hired somebody else to come on the team and lock up the contracts for me. And when that happened, I just did not know how the heck to train them. So for 2 weeks straight, I sat in my office and I'm like, well, let me just go reverse engineer every single deal I've done up to this point. Let me go figure out all the steps that I took in every single conversation that led to me getting a contract. And as I did that for 2 weeks straight, the 8-step sales process was born. So here's what happened. I bring on this guy named Felipe to the team. I teach him the 8-step sales process, and he goes out and he starts having some pretty dang good conversations. But there was one problem. As he's doing this and he's getting all the information that he needs to get, and he's looking at the 8-step sales process and he's asking the right questions and all this stuff, I start to realize I'm listening to his calls. I'm like, man, there's something missing. I'm like, there's something missing. Yeah, he's doing good. He's having some decent conversations, but the flow is missing, right? It kind of sounds like a robot is talking or he's reading off of a script. How the heck do I change this? So when I realized that, I'm like, okay, let me go back and listen to my calls again, and let me figure out how I make the call flow. So as I did that, I came up with 11 sales tools, okay? And these sales tools are techniques and strategies that get you through a conversation. So don't get me wrong, the 8-step sales process is very important, and it's been the foundation of our entire business. But when I realized that there was just something missing, I saw that the 8-step sales process was the training wheels to get people started in sales. Once they realized what the 8-step sales process was, light bulb just kind of went off in their brain. Right? One of the main feedbacks that I get from people that join Blueprint that learn the 8-step sales process is, dang, I know exactly what to go ask the sellers, and I know exactly where all the leads should hang out in my CRM. I know when I should follow up. I know why I should follow up. I know when people should be closed, why they aren't closed yet. There's just a lot of clarity. But I realized that the 8-step sales process was just training wheels. I realized that it's the next level to sales, and that's effectively communicating so that you just have a natural flowing conversation. So you might be thinking to yourself, maybe you're in the beginning of sales. You might be like, dang, sometimes on these calls, I'm just sitting here like, crap, what the heck do I say next? And the flow is not there, and it might be a little bit choppy. No worries. That's completely fine. You're right where you should be. Now, the next step is to get you to that flow state so that when you're talking to a motivated seller, it sounds like you were just talking to your homie that you knew for about 15 years. When you level up to that point, that is when you can get into any sales conversation and absolutely crush it. Really quick before you watch the rest of the video, if you haven't heard already, I'm running a monthly free wholesaling challenge, and this is what it looks like. Week 1, it's a sales training. Week 2 is also a sales training. Week 3, I hop on the phone with sellers, and I call them in real time. Week 4, I actually give you guys motivated seller leads to call on the Zoom. Now, my team has generated thousands of leads, and I provide those leads for you guys to call on the Zoom. And I'm in the side chat giving you guys feedback on what to say next and all that stuff to push it to the next level. So if you want to get in these Zooms, it's absolutely free. Go to wholesalewithmike.com or just go to the link in the description below. Let's get back into the video. So one of the main things that you are going to need to do in order to start being fluent in your conversations is you're going to have to go out and do the thing. You got to learn the 8-step sales process. You got to figure out the questions that you got to go ask, and then go out and ask those questions. And time after time after time, you are going to get more fluent and you're going to get better. So you go out and you do the thing, and you also practice with role plays. Here's one of the main things that helped me while I was in the beginning stages. I was learning processes from a bunch of different sales trainers and books and all that different type of stuff. And then I would go out and I would implement, and I would ask the questions that I just learned. And then what I would do is I would record myself, and me and my wife would listen to the recording at night. So I would be physically hearing myself, and I was like, dang, I'm kind of choppy right there. I could have worded that question a little bit different. I could have stalled right there. I could have listened a little bit there more. I could have done this better, that better. And then the next day I implemented what I should have done better the previous day. And time after time, I just got 1% better, 1% better, 1% better. And that stacks up and you become great. That's what the goal is. The goal is to just keep on stacking these small wins time after time after time again. And you build calluses of a skill set. And that's how you get better over time. So this doesn't happen overnight. So if you're in the situation right now where you're like, Mike, I'm just not even there yet. I barely even know what the heck to ask. No problem. Like, you're going to get there. Just go out, practice, analyze yourself, record yourself. It's almost just like football. If you're going out and you're playing a game, you got to record yourself, right? That's why everybody shoots films during the football game so that they can go back and watch what the heck they did good, what they did wrong. And you go out and you just simply implement what should have been done right. But while you are analyzing yourself and going back and watching the film or listening to the tape, if you know the things to look out for, if you already know these sales tools, then you'll be able to point them out and be like, oh, dang, I could have used that sales tool right there. That would have been a great idea. And then it's much easier to go implement the next day. So today, I don't have time to go over every single sales tool that we have in Blueprint. We got 11 of them. They're all freaking great. But what I want to give you guys is the top three. The top three that if you take these three sales tools and utilize them and affect them, you will be having some great conversations. The first one is actively listening. This isn't the easiest to do when you're first starting out, especially when you're thinking about all the questions that you got to ask and you're like, oh, dang, well, I got to get the budget bucket. I got to get the decision bucket. You're thinking about all these steps in the 8-step sales process that you got to get. It's kind of hard to listen at the same time while you're thinking about your next move. Okay. So no problem. It takes practice. But what actively listening is it's listening to the main key points that somebody is telling you while they're talking. So obviously you're not talking, you're listening. For you married men, I need you guys to listen up. You're going to be able to take this sales tool and use it in your marriage. Here's when my marriage actually shifted. When I started actively listening in my marriage, right? My wife would get home from work, and before I intentionally actively listened, I'd be like, hey, babe, how's work? And simply she would be like, oh, yeah, this happened, that happened. And I'd just be like, wow, dang, I'm sorry that happened. And we'll just go on to the next conversation. However, when I started actively listening, the conversation went a little bit different. It went like this. I'd be like, hey, babe, how was work today? And she would go in detail about what went on. And I would dig into the underlying details. She would say, this coworker had to deal with this and that and the other. And I would follow up with open-ended questions on what the heck it was that, was going on with that specific coworker. And now she's like, dang, Mike's really listening to me and he's engaged and he's really like caring about what the heck is going on. That catapulted my marriage. And I ultimately started learning much more about my wife than I ever did. So that's what actively listening does. So while you're on a seller call, they're going to give you, let's just say you're in the rapport bucket. Okay. By the way, if you have not watched the 8-step sales process video, you're going to be super confused about what all these buckets are. So stop this right now, pause it, get back to this video and go back to the 8-step sales process and watch them. But the rapport bucket where we're getting the motivation, let's just say you're in that bucket and they tell you, hey, yeah, I do have this property here. The property's been vacant for a couple years now. And, I had to move out of state and now I'm down in Florida and I just don't know what the heck to do with the property. Well, that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of information. There's like key main points in what they just gave you. 1, property has been vacant for 2 years. Okay. 2, they just don't know what the heck to do with the property. 3, they had to move down to Florida. Like, those are very key. So I got to figure out, why the heck did they have to move down to Florida? Like, was there something that went on? Was there a crisis? What the heck happened? Why has it been vacant for 2 years? Right? And what is getting them caught up? Why don't they know what the heck to do with the property? Once I get the answers to those questions, now I'm starting to piece the puzzle together and I get a full puzzle. And that's what our job is to do as salespeople. We need the whole entire puzzle. So that's what actively listening is. Okay. The second thing is validating. This is after you actively listened. Is validating. Repeat back what the person just said in your own words. Okay. This does a couple different things. It gets you to really understand it. And that's your goal. When you're effectively communicating, you really want to understand what the person's circumstances are. So you're repeating it back in your own words, one, to get validation that you are both on the same page and that you have the story correct. Okay, that's one of the main reasons. The second reason is it shows the person that you're talking to that you're really listening. Okay, dang, so you've had this property here for 2 years. It's been vacant. And in the meantime, you ended up moving down to Florida, and you start saying it back to them. Okay, that prepares you for number 3. And I do this simultaneously. This is going to help the flow of the conversation. As you were repeating it back to them, does a couple things, like I said. Gets you on the same page as them, and it also lets them know that you're listening to them. But number 3, it sets you up for this third tool that I'm talking about. It sets you up for the next question. It sets you up for the flow. As you are saying that out loud, right, you start thinking about it in your brain. You're like, all right, as I'm validating, let me think about another question that I can ask that brings the puzzle together. Okay, so you ask an open-ended question. The sales tool number 3 is open-ended questions. Using open-ended questions. This is not a yes or a no question. This is a question that gets them to open up so that they start having an in-depth conversation and they tell you more than just yes or no. I can imagine you guys have probably been on phone calls before, and it kind of goes like this. Hey, you interested in selling? Yeah. Okay, how much do you want to sell it for? 500 grand. Okay, when do you want to sell it? I don't know. And there's just these all yes or no or one word type of questions, and the conversation is very dull. When you bring open-ended questions to the table, the conversation is not dull, and ultimately the person that you're talking to will open up, and it forces them to have a full-blown conversation rather than just giving you those one-word answers, okay? So after you validate, think about the main things that they said while you're actively listening and follow up with an open-ended question on what you were actively listening to. We have a couple more videos here on this Kingdom Closer series. If you have been enjoying this Kingdom Closer series, show some love in the comments. Please hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. I know there's a lot of you out there that been watching these videos and you're just not subscribed yet. So please subscribe to this channel, and I'll catch y'all on the next video. Peace out.